What if the greatest obstacle to your happiness, peace, and true freedom wasn't the world around you, but the ego within you? The ego has a way of controlling your thoughts, your emotions, and even your sense of self without you realizing it. But here's the truth. It's all an illusion. In this video, we'll uncover the ego's most deceptive trick, reveal how it keeps you trapped, and show you the key to breaking free once and for all. This could be the moment everything changes for you. Are you ready to see through the illusion and reclaim your inner peace? Section 1. What is the ego and why does it control you? The ego is often misunderstood. It's not inherently evil or wrong. It's a survival mechanism that evolved to protect us. In its simplest form, the ego is your sense of self. It's that inner narrative constantly defining who you are. It says, I'm successful because of my job, or I'm a failure because of my mistakes. But this identity is fragile. Why? Because it's built on conditions. The ego's job is to create a separation between you and the world. It loves labels: good, bad, right, wrong, worthy, unworthy. It thrives on comparisons. I have more than them, or I'm not good enough because they're better. This constant judgment keeps you trapped in an endless cycle of highs and lows. Think about it. When you achieve something, the ego celebrates, but it's short-lived. The moment you face failure or criticism, the ego panics, throwing you into self-doubt. This is how it maintains control. It makes you feel like you always need more success, more validation, more approval. But here's the kicker: no matter how much you chase, it's never enough. The ego's hunger is insatiable, and the sooner you realize this, the sooner you can begin to break free. Section 2. The ego's sneaky tactics. The ego is cunning. It works behind the scenes, manipulating your thoughts and emotions. One of its favorite tricks is creating endless distractions. Have you ever tried to sit in silence, only to be bombarded by a stream of thoughts? That's the ego at work. It doesn't want you to be present, because the present moment is where its control weakens. The ego thrives on overthinking. It makes you replay past mistakes or worry about future uncertainties. Why? Because as long as you're caught up in these mental loops, you're too distracted to notice the truth. The ego isn't you. Comparison is another sneaky tactic. The ego constantly measures your worth against others. They're more successful, or I'm better than them. These thoughts may seem harmless, but they trap you in a never-ending cycle of superiority and inferiority. This is how the ego keeps you hooked, by making you feel either not good enough or falsely superior. The moment you start observing these patterns, you begin to disarm the ego. You realize that these thoughts aren't personal, they're just habits. And like any habit, they can be unlearned. Section 3. How the ego uses fear to control you. Fear is the ego's secret weapon. It whispers doubts and insecurities, keeping you frozen in place. What if you fail? It says. What if people judge you? The ego uses fear as a barrier to growth. It convinces you to stay in your comfort zone, where things feel safe and familiar. But here's the truth. Fear is nothing more than a projection of your mind. It's not real. It's a story the ego tells to maintain control over you. Think about the last time you wanted to take a big step, whether it was starting a new job, expressing your feelings, or pursuing a dream. What stopped you? Chances are it was fear. Fear of failure, rejection, or the unknown. But was that fear based on actual danger? Probably not. Most fears are imagined, rooted in what-ifs and hypotheticals. The ego thrives on this because fear keeps you stuck. It makes you second-guess yourself, overanalyze decisions, and hesitate. But when you see fear for what it is, an illusion, you begin to strip the ego of its power. Fear can't survive in the present moment because it's always tied to the past or future. By grounding yourself in the now, you weaken its grip and take back control. Section 4. Recognizing the ego's final trick. The ego's ultimate trick is perhaps its most deceptive. It convinces you that without it, you'll lose everything: your identity, your ambition, your sense of purpose. It makes you believe that you need it to survive. But this is the greatest illusion of all. Imagine a bird that's been caged for so long it forgets what it means to fly. The cage becomes its reality, and the thought of leaving feels terrifying. This is exactly how the ego operates. It creates a false sense of safety, convincing you that the walls it builds are protecting you. But in reality, those walls are what's keeping you from experiencing true freedom. When you start questioning this, the ego fights back. It might say, "Without me, you'll be nothing," or "If you let go, you'll lose control." But here's the secret. Letting go doesn't mean losing control. It means gaining freedom. True control comes from aligning with your deeper self, the part of you that's connected to peace, clarity, and purpose. The moment you recognize this trick, the ego begins to lose its hold. You realize that you don't need to cling to these false identities or stories. You are not your achievements or failures. You are something far greater. Section 5. The power of awareness. Awareness is the antidote to the ego's games. When you observe your thoughts without judgment, you create space between you and the ego. This space is where transformation happens. Let's say you catch yourself comparing your life to someone else's. Instead of getting lost in jealousy or insecurity, you simply observe the thought, "Oh, my ego is comparing again." This simple act of noticing breaks the cycle. It's like turning on the light in a dark room. The shadows disappear. Awareness isn't about suppressing your ego or fighting against it. It's about seeing it for what it is, a part of you, but not the real you. The more you practice awareness, the more you connect with your true self, the self that exists beyond thoughts, labels, and fears. The beauty of awareness is that it's always available. No matter where you are or what you're doing, you can pause, take a breath, and become present. And in that presence, the ego loses its power. Section 6. The illusion of control. Control is the ego's playground, the stage where it puts on its most convincing performance. The ego tells you that control equals security, that if you can just manipulate the pieces of your life perfectly, you'll finally feel safe, successful, and happy. But control is a mirage. It doesn't truly exist. Consider the weather. No matter how much you plan, you can't stop the rain from falling or the sun from setting. Yet the ego convinces you that you can control people, outcomes, and even time. This illusion drives endless anxiety and frustration. You overthink conversations, micromanage situations, and obsess over results, all in the name of control. But what happens when you release the need for control? Life doesn't fall apart. It flows. You begin to notice opportunities that were hidden behind your rigid plans. You handle challenges with grace because you're no longer fixated on how things should be. Letting go of control doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. Imagine being in a river. The ego wants to swim upstream, exhausting itself against the current. Letting go means turning around, letting the river guide you. It's not passive. It's trusting that the current knows the way. This shift isn't easy, but the peace it brings is unparalleled. Section 7. The ego's fear of vulnerability. Vulnerability is the ego's kryptonite. It sees openness as a threat because being vulnerable means exposing your true self. The ego thrives on masks. It hides behind achievements, status, or perfection to avoid the risk of rejection. But these masks are heavy, and carrying them drains your energy. Think about the connections you value most. Are they built on shared accomplishments or shared authenticity? True connection arises when you allow yourself to be seen, flaws and all. Yet the ego resists this because it equates vulnerability with weakness. It whispers, "What if they judge you? What if you're not enough?" But here's the truth. Vulnerability isn't weakness, it's courage. It's saying, "This is who I am," without apology or pretense. It's embracing the risk of being seen because the reward, genuine connection, freedom, and peace, is worth it. When you embrace vulnerability, you reclaim the energy the ego used to maintain its walls. You become lighter, freer, and more aligned with your true self. Start small. Share an honest thought with someone you trust. Acknowledge a mistake without defensiveness. These acts may feel uncomfortable at first, but each one chips away at the ego's fortress, revealing the strength and beauty of your authentic self. Section 8. How the ego hides in spirituality. The ego doesn't disappear when you embark on a spiritual journey. Instead, it adapts. It whispers, "Now you're special because you're spiritual." It turns meditation into competition and enlightenment into a goal. Suddenly, the ego is using your spiritual practices to strengthen itself. You might find yourself thinking, "I'm more aware than others," or "I've read more books, so I know better." These thoughts create a subtle superiority, a separation between you and others, the very opposite of what spirituality aims to cultivate. The ego loves this paradox because it keeps you chasing an identity, even in the name of growth. True spirituality is about dissolving the ego, not feeding it. It's about unlearning, letting go, and reconnecting with the essence of who you are. It's not about labels or milestones. It's about being present and open. Recognizing this trap is the first step to transcending it. Approach your journey with humility, knowing that the path is not linear and that the ego will try to lead you astray. The moment you catch the ego hiding in your spiritual practices, you take back your power. Awareness disarms the ego, allowing you to deepen your connection to the present moment and the truth within. Section 9. Living beyond the ego. Living beyond the ego doesn't mean erasing it. The ego is part of being human, but it means no longer letting it dictate your thoughts, emotions, and actions. It means shifting from reacting to life to responding with clarity and peace. When you live beyond the ego, you stop seeking validation from external sources. Your worth isn't tied to likes, promotions, or applause. It comes from within. This inner stability allows you to navigate life's ups and downs with grace. You're no longer swayed by the highs of success or the lows of failure, because your sense of self isn't dependent on them. Imagine waking up without the constant mental chatter of the ego. Instead of worrying about what others think or what might go wrong, you're present. You notice the warmth of the sun, the taste of your coffee, the smile of a stranger. These moments become richer, more vivid, because you're not lost in the ego's narrative. This doesn't happen overnight, but every small step toward awareness brings you closer. Meditation, mindfulness, and self-inquiry are tools that help quiet the ego and connect you to your true self. The more you practice, the more you realize that living beyond the ego isn't about achieving something new, it's about remembering what was always there. Section 10. The power of surrender. Surrender is the ego's greatest fear and your greatest liberation. It's the act of letting go, not of effort or care, but of attachment to outcomes. It's releasing the need to control, judge, or cling, and trusting in the flow of life. The ego will fight this with everything it has. It will say, if you let go, you'll lose everything. But surrender isn't about losing, it's about gaining. When you surrender, you gain clarity, freedom, and peace. You stop fighting against reality and start flowing with it. Think of surrender as releasing a heavy backpack you've been carrying for years. The backpack is filled with fears, expectations, and control. When you let it go, you feel lighter, freer. You realize that you never needed it to begin with. Surrender doesn't mean passivity. It means aligning with the present moment and trusting your intuition to guide you. It means acting from a place of love and clarity rather than fear and attachment. And in this state, you discover a truth that the ego could never show you. Peace isn't something to be found, it's something to be uncovered. And there you have it, the path to breaking free from the ego's grip and discovering true peace. If this resonated with you, don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more insights to help you awaken to your true self. Until next time, stay present and stay free.